Dang.
Going on, Fourth Initials Podcast listeners, you got Kevin, Steve. What's going on, Kev?
What's going on, Stevie P? What's going on, listeners out there? How's everybody doing?
How you guys? So today we're going to do what we always do on Friday or Saturday. Today we're doing it on Saturday, but we're going to go over our ranks. And, first we'll start off with quarterbacks. So if you want to start us off, Kev?
All right. Number 1, I got Tom Brady. Number 2, I have Carson Wentz. Number 3, I have Drew Brees. Number 4, I have Dak Prescott. Number 5, Russell Wilson. Number 6, I have Jameis Winston. Number 7, Cam Newton. Number 8, Matt Ryan. Number 9, Kirk Cousins. Number 10, Phillip Rivers. Number 11, Andy Dalton. And number 12, Deshaun Watson.
Oh, we're going to have some stuff to talk about on this one. I could already tell. So, I have number 1, Tom Brady. I have number 2, Phillip Rivers. I have number 3, Cam Newton. 4, Dak Prescott. 5, Carson Wentz. 6, Kirk Cousins. 7, Tyrod Taylor. 8, Andy Dalton. 9, Drew Brees. 10, Winston. 11, McCown. And 12, Keenum.
Case Keenum.
Yeah, Case Keenum. So, really, I guess our biggest discrepancy seems to be Rivers. I have Rivers at 2. The reason why I have Rivers so high is, honestly, looking at it, I don't feel like Rivers is going to have a hard time throwing the ball in this game, especially with, Donta Hightower out for the rest of the season. I kind of feel like that really hurts the run defense for the Patriots, which means that the Chargers should have an easier time getting first downs. So that means he's going to be on the field a lot longer, and I can just see him racking up the yards and points.
Yeah, I'm not against Rivers. The only thing I would say was the last 2 of the last 3 weeks, and even the Jets game, it just seemed like the Patriots started turning things around. I mean, last week they damn near shut out Atlanta. The week before that, they allowed the 14 points early to the Jets, and after that, really didn't give up too much after that. And then the week before that, they kind of shut Jameis Winston down too. So it seemed like they started turning around on D. I know the Hightower injury is probably, it's definitely devastating for them. But I think Bill Belichick's a good enough coach that they can kind of work their way through that. And they always have a next man up philosophy. So. But I still have Rivers at number 10. It's not like he's not in my top 12 quarterbacks here. I have Jameis Winston at 6. That's one guy I want to talk about. He hasn't necessarily fared well against Carolina in his career. I kind of looked up his numbers, so I guess kind of think he's due. I know he's been injured. He's injured. He got the shoulder. I believe still messing with him, but. I just think that he's due for a good game. He hasn't, he's been up and down this season. I think this game, and you'll see, I have Mike Evans as my number 1 receiver. We'll go into that later. But I just think that he hasn't really force-fed Mike Evans as much as he did last year. And I think this is the week that they try to do that. Because, I've been saying I'm just not big on Carolina's cornerbacks. They're great run-stopping defense because they have those 2 linebackers. And I'm pretty sure Kuechly is going to play, but not 100% sure. I think he's questionable. Is he not, Steve?
Yeah, actually, they're saying he is questionable, looking more like playing than not.
Yeah,
so.
I was going to say, I think he's more likely to play. But, so with that being said, I even like, Jameis and Mike Evans more because I don't know how much Doug Martin's going to be able to get on the ground if Kuechly and Davis are both playing. But that's one of my biggest plays is Winston at number 6.
I hear that. For me, did you have Tyrod in your top 12, Kev?
I did not have Tyrod in my top 12.
Okay, so for
I
me,
was borderline with him and Watson.
I gotcha.
I'm not high on Watson this week. I can't see a rookie going into Seattle against that defense and doing too much. But so I'm not really high on Watson this week, but so I was kind of borderline with him and Tyrod at 12.
Yeah, I hear
Tyrod
that.
does have a good matchup with Oakland, though.
Yeah, I hear that. I left Watson out of my top 12 also. I just feel like he's going to have a little bit of a hard time scoring against that defense, especially in Seattle. So,
Yeah.
For me, I kind of felt like I wasn't sure if I wanted to do that. But for me, Tyrod Taylor, at home, he's been very good at home. He has basically been around, 20 to 25 fantasy points every home game this season. The Raiders' defense is just not good. They seem to have a lot of trouble stopping every position. There's not really a position that they're actually good at stopping. So I could see, Tyrod Taylor, just kind of like what he did last week, except maybe more passing touchdowns. He just had the one passing touchdown last week. So I could definitely see him getting in the end zone a couple times this week and kind of repeating what he did last week. He had 300 total yards and a touchdown, so I could definitely see, the same thing with maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns against that really bad Raiders defense.
Barkley just ran the opening kickoff for a second.
Yeah, so I kind of agree. I think that, Tyrod definitely is a good play against Oakland. Like I said, he was kind of borderline, and Watson's just been such a lot better player, so far this season. So I just kind of threw Watson in there, even though his matchup isn't as good. I like Andy Dalton this week. I have him at number 11.
Mm-hmm.
He's just got a really good matchup against Indy. Indy's been stopping the run this year, so that should put more emphasis on the passing game for Cincinnati. AJ Green should have a good game, and I actually am kind of high on Tyler Kroft this week as well. So, I like Andy Dalton this week against that Indianapolis defense that seems to be very vulnerable in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. I have Dalton at 8 for me. I just think game script wise, he could get up to a big lead and stop throwing the ball. But you could say the same thing about Carson Wentz this week, get up big on the 49ers and then just stop throwing the ball. But honestly, I just can't not rank those guys in my top 12. For me, they're going to be amazing when they're playing. So
that's nuts. Sorry, Saquon Barkley just took the opening kickoff against Ohio State to the house. But yeah,
nice.
So I love that dude, man. I tell you what, if Philly could get that dude next year, I would love it.
I hear
that. Sorry, everybody. I think that's pretty much it for me with quarterbacks. I really wanted to get into.
I do have one more I want to talk about. I have kind of low. I have Drew Brees at 9. I know a lot of you guys are probably thinking, like, what the hell against Chicago? If you look at what Chicago has been doing this year, I said it last week. Yeah, I said it last week with Cam Newton. I didn't like Cam Newton last week. He wasn't in my top 12 because of the style that the Chicago plays. If you watched the Saints last week, they gave up a lot of rushing yards to Aaron Jones. I think Chicago has a better offensive line than the Green Bay Packers. So I could see a game where, the Chicago Bears are running the hell out of the ball, and the Seahawks are, the Saints are having a little bit of trouble stopping them and keeping Drew Brees off the field, because that's kind of Chicago's MO, keeping the other team off the field and keeping the game low scoring. Plus, Chicago's defense is good. So, Drew Brees a little bit lower for me.
That's kind of a staple of John Fox's teams. He likes to have that kind of a solid defense and lean on the running game. That's what he did with Carolina. The one year he was good with Denver. I mean, he had Peyton Manning throwing balls all over the field, but that's kind of his staple, was just play good defense and run the ball.
I hear that. All right, so you want to go to tight ends, or you want to go to running backs, or what do you want to do?
We'll go to running backs. Let's just go in the traditional order.
All right,
I guess. Let's start it off. It's pretty basic for the first couple. I got. Now remember, guys, we do rank before Thursday, so our Thursday guys will be in there. So number 1, I have Le'Veon. Number 2, I have Ezekiel Elliott. Number 3, Shady McCoy. Number 4, I have Jordan Howard. Number 5, I had Jay Ajayi. Number 6, I have Mark Ingram. Number 7, Devontae Freeman. Number 8, Kareem Hunt. Number 9, I have Chris Thompson. Number 10, I have Carlos Hyde. Number 11, I have Melvin Gordon. 12, I have LeGarrette Blount. 13, Christian McCaffrey. 14, Doug Martin. 15, Alvin Kamara. 16, C.J. Anderson. 17, Lamar Miller. 18, Bilal Powell. 19, Jerick McKinnon. 20, Duke Johnson. 21, Joe Mixon. 22, Amir Abdullah. 23, Wendell Smallwood. And 24, Tariq Cohen.
Yeah, we definitely have our list very similar. A couple of the players you had, I have actually also. So you guys got to remember this week, there is a lot of bye weeks. You have Green Bay, you have Jacksonville, you have the Giants, you have the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Titans. So, a lot of good players not in the player pool. So some of the names that we're going to be mentioning, you got to keep that in mind that our list is pretty limited this week. So some guys we wouldn't normally
the girlies rank. And them guys ain't going to be around.
Exactly. So, but my list is Le'Veon Bell 1, McCoy 2, Ezekiel Elliott number 3. I have Melvin Ingram number 4. Melvin Gordon, I'm sorry. And Mark Ingram number 5. I have Antonio Freeman 6. I have Antonio. I have Christian McCaffrey number 7. I have Joe Mixon number 8. I have Kareem Hunt number 9. I have Jordan Howard 10. I have Alvin Kamara number 11. I have LeGarrette Blount 12. I have Doug Martin 13. C.J. Anderson 14. Matt Forte 15. Lamar Miller 16. Thompson 17. Abdullah 18. Coleman 19. Hyde at 20. I have McKinnon at 21. I have Jay Stu at 22. I have Smallwood at 23. And I have James White at 24. We mention to you guys all the time that we're a PPR podcast. So there's a lot of PPR guys in my rankings this week, more than usual.
I was going to say, the main one I have is going to be my first guy I talk about, but you can go into yours, Steve.
Okay.
But, my first guy that I talk about is actually going to be one of those PPR guys.
Yeah, I hear that. So, for me, the first guy I want to talk about is Devontae Freeman. I know, or formerly known as Antonio Freeman, because I haven't slept since 11 o'clock last night. But anyway, Devontae Freeman this week, he's actually got a pretty tough matchup. Going up against the Jets. I think the Jets are a little bit, people are sleeping on the Jets defense. It's actually been really good this year. But I like his pass catching ability against the Jets. Jets have been a little bit suspect in stopping pass catching running backs. And for me, I think if the Atlanta Falcons are going to win this game, they're going to have to go to New York and run the ball and throw it to him out of the backfield. They're going to have to get him really involved, and which is why I also have Coleman in my top 20. I think both backs are going to be really utilized in this game, and I could see them both having pretty good games.
Yeah, I hope so. I was huge on Devontae Freeman last week, and that didn't come through for me. I mean, they also got down in the game and kind of got away from him, but Atlanta's just right now. They're such a hard team to figure out right now. But I like Devontae Freeman. Hopefully this week he goes off.
I hear that.
The main guy, my first guy I want to talk about is Chris Thompson. I have him at number 9. This guy's been pretty much performing all year. I was not big on him. A few weeks ago, I actually was given a trade offer of Chris Thompson for Jordy Nelson, and I basically laughed at it, and I wish I could take that trade back right now. But one of the big things in this game that I know that Dallas plays a lot of deep cover 2. They like to prevent big plays. I remember it a lot from last year against Philly. I mean, we just had to check down all game, and I've noticed it a lot in these first few weeks. I think they just want to play very simple football, Dallas does, which is run the ball, pass when you have to, and block those big plays from happening on defense, so they kind of stay relatively deep. And I think this is a big game for Jordan Reed and for Chris Thompson, because I think there's going to be a lot of check down from Kirk Cousins. On top of the fact that Chris Thompson has been performing all year, and he's looked like a stud coming out of the backfield catching the ball. I really like Chris Thompson this week. I think that he's in for a big week.
Yeah, I could see a game script where he goes off. Dallas is actually having a really tough time stopping anybody. Last week against the 49ers, you got to remember, they're coming off their bye week. The 49ers are a team that's, at that point 0-6. They're basically know that their season's over. Dallas came in there trying to run the ball and just down their throat, and were successful doing it. When you're an 0-6 team, you kind of get a little demoralized, and it is what it is. So, I don't think Dallas' defense is as good as it looked last week. I think they just jumped on a wounded animal. So, I could definitely see.
100% agree. 100% agree. Dallas is not going to be doing that to teams going forward.
Yeah, exactly. So, I can see a game script where Thompson, has a really big game. And he's honestly, if you look at his numbers, it's really crazy. Okay, so Le'Veon Bell, we all know how good Le'Veon Bell is, but Le'Veon Bell is, basically let's say 30% of his team's receiving yardage, as where Thompson is almost 50% of his team's yardage. It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's ridiculous. I mean, they have just totally, their whole offense has just totally changed. Yeah, I've noticed that actually throughout the NFL. It seems like a lot of teams are just, whether it's the Bears with Howard and Cohen, whether it's, Cincinnati using all these running backs. It's just like a lot of these teams are just using multiple running backs more and more, it seems like, especially in the passing game.
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming a league more of, instead of having your Ezekiel Elliott's, you're having, your Christian, your Christian McCaffreys and, your Chris Thompsons. It's a lot more of those guys are coming out of college.
Yeah, you got Kamara and Ingram that are both, top 24 plays almost every week. You can throw Duke Johnson and Isaiah Crowell in there, even though Crowell hasn't been good this year. You can throw them in there. It's just like, a lot of these teams just seem to be doing that. Blunt and Smallwood. It's definitely a lot of committee work.
Yeah, definitely. So real quick, just so you guys can kind of grasp what's going on.
It's
I'm going to go over Chris Thompson's numbers, and then I'm going to go over Kirk Cousins' numbers, just so you can see like how much of yardage he's really getting them. Against Philly, he had 4 for 52. Kirk Cousins threw for 240 yards. So. That's a big chunk of his yardage. Against the Rams, he had only 29 yards, but Kirk Cousins only threw for 179 that game. Against Oakland, he had 6 for 150, and Kirk Cousins threw for 365. So that's a third of his passing yards going to Chris Thompson.
Exactly.
Week 4, only 4 yards. Week 6, he 4 for 105, and he threw for 330. So, you could just see, like, when his 300-yard games are coming, because Chris Thompson is really blowing up. So, I can definitely see that happening.
Definitely. I'm big on Chris Thompson this week.
I hear that. All right, so the guy I want to talk about is C.J. Anderson.
Where, oh, where have you?
Yeah, it's been bad. Okay, so I watched this game on my lunch break today. I actually watched the game against the Chargers. And CJ didn't look bad. Like, against the Giants, he was getting hit in the backfield basically all game. And then against the Chargers this week, he just, he was getting yardage. It's just, I don't know what the coaching staff is doing. Like, they're just abandoning the run completely when they get down by a touchdown.
Dude, it's amazing. Between them and Atlanta, the first 3 weeks of the year, Devontae Freeman was a monster. And then all of a sudden, the offense starts going downhill when they stop giving the dude the ball. And it's the same thing with Denver and CJ. CJ was he was getting 20-something carries, every week. He was putting up monster numbers, and the offense looked good. Simeon looked good. You go away from Anderson, and now your offense looks like trash. I think that it's pretty key what you're doing differently. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. If you look at the games that they've won this year, they beat the Chargers week 1. They ran the ball 20 times with CJ. In Dallas, the very next week, they beat Dallas at home. They ran the ball 25 times with CJ. Against Buffalo, they only ran 8 times. They lost. And against Oakland, they ran 20 times. They won. Against the Giants, they ran 9 times and lost. And against the Chargers this week, 10 times and they lost. So, it's clear as day that when they're using him 20 times or more, they're winning games. So to me, the next 2 weeks are going to be a little bit tough. Kansas City is really not a really good defense. But
no, they're really not. I mean, you would think that they'd be better considering there's the way they have been this year, their record and everything like that. But yeah, their defense has not been very good.
Exactly. And then he's got Philly week 9, which is probably the best run defense that I've watched on tape. The best. To me, I know a lot of people are saying Denver is the best rush defense, but just watching Philly play, they stifle the run. It's crazy.
I'm a little nervous about them going forward in the run D. I could talk about that later, but they lost Jordan Hicks, and when Jordan Hicks went out, man, Rob Kelly was getting like 9 yards a carry. It seemed like, and they just went away from Rob Kelly. But what happened was Philly actually went to a lot of dime defense and started using their safeties more as linebackers than actually playing their backup linebackers, because their backup linebackers were horrible. But hopefully this week they'll get Kendricks back, and not much will change. But yeah, Philly's run defense has been good. I'm just a little nervous with it losing Jordan Hicks.
I hear that. So for this week, CJ, if you're gonna bank on CJ, I definitely think you have to. You know what I mean? He's a number, he might not be a number 1 running back. He's a number 2, a high-end number 2. And I think if you use him this week, you're going to be happy with him. I think he will have, 80 yards and a possible touchdown. So
that's what they have to do if they want to win games. They have to feed CJ the ball, work the play action in with Simeon a lot like they did early in the year.
Yep, I hear that.
Okay, the next guy I think I'm going to talk about a combo. I'm going to talk about Garrett Blount and Wendell Smallwood. I love them this week. A lot like we were talking about last week with when Steve brought up Aaron Jones. Yeah. There's supposed to be torrential downpours at this game, and I just think this is going to be a game where Smallwood and Blount are going to be fed the ball, especially if the Eagles get up early. The second half could be a lot of running attack, and you can see Smallwood and Blount both have really good games. I think they're both playable. If you could probably put both of them in your lineup the way I feel this week, because I think both of them are in for big weeks.
I agree. Looking at the game script, it just seems like the over under. I think it's like 46.5, or it might be 47. And I'm pretty sure that the Eagles are the highest,
I think we're like,
spread, and I think it's
definitely.
like 13.5.
Yeah, I was going to say I think it's like 14, but yeah.
Exactly. So with that game script, I could just see LeGarrette Blount having one of those LeGarrette Blount games where he rushes for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. So. I like him a lot this week. I also have him ranked at 12, and Smallwood. So this is the game that you want to see what Smallwood, how he's being used, because a lot of people were saying in the beginning of the year after Darren Sproles went down that he was going to become the Darren Sproles role. And then a lot of people are saying, he's not really in that role, blah, blah, blah. Well, you got to remember, he got hurt. He played one game without Darren Sproles. He had 2 catches. He was getting acclimated to becoming, coming into that role. And then he got hurt. And then last week they kind of just wanted to ease him back. I think this is the week you want to see if he takes that role on. If he catches the ball 3, 4, 5 times in this game, then he has the Darren Sproles role. And in that role, I really like him. So, this is one of those games and he's probably going to be on my trade for list next week. If he does get that role, if he's catching 4, 5, 6 balls, he's going to be one of my buys next week. I can tell you that right now.
Definitely.
And the last guy I want to talk about at the running back is James White. I have James White at 24. In this game, I can definitely see James White being utilized. He was great last week. If you watched him, he was really good last week, and I could definitely see them going against the Chargers. The Chargers, they're not a good run stopping defense, but they're also not good against the pass either. I think they rank like 22nd or 23rd in completions to running backs. So you could definitely, James White is the pass catching back for that team. So I could definitely see him having, 4, 5, 6 catches and maybe, 40, 50 yards receiving, including whatever 3 or 4 touches they're going to give him in the rushing game. So if he scores a touchdown for you, he's, RB2 status.
Yeah, I agree. I like both of them guys this week. I didn't have either one in my top 24, but I like both Dion Lewis and James White this week. I think they both are in for good games. Mm-hmm. Dion Lewis seems to be the guy that's getting carries now. They kind of phase Mike Gillislee out a little bit, and I really like what I see out of that team, out of those two running backs. Especially moving forward, because Dion Lewis, I said a couple, 2 years ago, he was an absolute monster before he tore his ACL. So if he's back to that old form, man, watch out, because the Patriots offense could look even better.
Yeah, definitely.
The last guy I'll talk about is I talked a lot about him the other day on the daily fantasy podcast. Is Bilal Powell. I think Bilal Powell's in for a huge week this week. This is one where I kind of fed off Steve's game film watching. as he said, Atlanta is not very good against passing down backs. And I just think Bilal Powell coming out of that backfield is going to have a big day against Atlanta. He's going to get rushing attempts as well. I just think Bilal Powell's in for a big week. He's had a couple good weeks in the last 2 weeks, surprisingly, because I didn't know what the heck was going on with the Jets running back situation. It was, you saw he was hurt, and you saw McGuire, and you see Forte, and maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago it was kind of looking like, what the hell is the Jets running back situation looking like? Yeah. But the last couple of weeks, Bilal Powell's really stepped up, and I can see him having a big week this week against a good matchup in Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly, so the trade deadline is it at the end of this week, Kev, or is it at the end of next week?
I have no idea. I think it's at the end of week 8, so maybe the end of next week. Okay,
so that's what I thought. And if you noticed, they're using Matt Forte a lot more recently in the past 2 or 3 weeks than they were in the beginning of the season. I kind of have a feeling that they're trying to trade him. I was reading an article today. A beat writer for the Jets was saying that he thinks that they are trying to showcase him to be traded.
Yeah, I think so too.
So if that's the case, it's just Bilal Powell is going to be the guy, and that's going to be amazing. So probably another guy we're going to be talking about next week. But yeah, I like Bilal Powell. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, I like Bilal Powell, and like Kev said, I can definitely see him catching some passes in this game. And if you look, he's got a little pep in his step the past couple of weeks. I think he's, he saw what the rookie was, trying to step on his turf a little bit, and he's been playing really well.
Exactly. He saw McGuire getting some carries and was like, "Hold on, this ain't happening."
Exactly. So I like running backs that have that little competitive spirit in them.
Gotcha. Real quick, before we go into wide, you're good with running backs, right, Steve?
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
okay.
I don't really have anybody I want to talk to.
All right. Good. Before we go into wide receivers, I just got to say, I thought Alex Collins looked great the other night running. I don't think either one of us had him ranked, but I thought Alex Collins looked really good running and hitting the hole with a lot of speed and power. I thought Alex Collins looked really good the other night. He's definitely a guy that I got my eye on coming up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, he definitely looked really good.
Thursday night game.
And you know what? He looked fluid in the passing game too. He
caught a couple balls.
Yeah, he caught a little dump off pass on the left side, ran up left sideline for I think it was like a 27-yard gain. You know, he's deceptively fast. You know what I mean? He doesn't.
I was going to say when he was hitting them holes with a really good burst. I was actually kind of surprised.
Yeah, he's definitely got a pep in his step. He puts his foot in the ground and he can get going quick. You know, and you could see defensive linemen trying to adjust to how quick he was turning. You know what I mean? He would basically hit a hole and be out of that hole so quick. Defensive linemen were having a lot of trouble getting off the offensive lineman to even grab him, let alone tackle him. So
underestimated speed.
Yeah, he definitely looks good.
Yep.
And while we're talking about that, we might as well talk about Jay Ajayi. Jay Ajayi, so he had 13 carries in the game. I watched the game tape, and I'm telling you what, the guy was hitting the freaking backfield. Like, I want to say on 8 of the 13 running plays that he had. So, if you're an Ajayi owner, you really can't look at this game tape and say, "Oh, I'm giving up on Jay Ajayi," because the offensive line. If you want to say, "Okay, the offensive line is terrible and I'm giving up on him," I'm okay with that. But you can't look at this film and say Jay Ajayi is just bad, because I don't care who it is. If you put LaDainian Tomlinson in that backfield with that offensive line blocking for him, guess what? He's going to get his ass romped, and that's just it is what it is.
And that's the thing. I mean, with Matt Moore in the game, it's like you're just putting guys all in the box and saying, Matt Moore, if you can beat us, beat us. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So, Matt Moore, it's funny. I actually saw, on social media, I've seen a few, posts about Cutler and, McCutler probably being back. And I go into the comments and all these Miami fans are like, we leave Matt Moore in. Like, dude, I don't like Jay Cutler at all, but he's better than Matt Moore. Matt Moore is terrible.
Matt Moore is so
you guys
bad.
got to know what the hell's best for your team, because that damn sure ain't Matt Moore.
No, he is really, really bad. You're not lying.
Yeah, but all right, let's get into these receivers. I'll go down my list real quick.
Yep.
Number 1, I have Mike Evans. 2, I have AJ Green. 3, Antonio Brown. 4, Julio Jones. 5, Keenan Allen. 6, Doug Baldwin. 7, Demaryius Thomas. 8, Mike Thomas. 9, I had Jarvis Landry. That was terrible. Number 10, I have Brandon Cooks. 11, Dez Bryant. 12, DeAndre Hopkins. 13, Stephon Diggs. 14, Chris Hogan. 15, Tyreek Hill. 16, Amari Cooper. 17, Pierre Garçon. 18, Adam Thielen. 19, Michael Crabtree. 20, Kelvin Benjamin. 21, Alshon Jeffrey. 22, Nelson Aguilar. 23, Devin Funchess. 24, Golden Tate. 25, T.Y. Hilton. 26, Marvin Jones. 27, Deshaun Jackson. 28, Jeremy Maclin. 29, Mohamed Sanu. 30, Danny Amendola. 31, Ted Ginn Jr. 32, Juju Smith-Schuster. 33, Jermaine Kearse. 34, Will Fuller. 35, Josh Doxson. And 36, Benny Fowler.
All right. So I actually did my wide receiver rankings today. I didn't get to do them on Thursday, so I actually don't have the Thursday night guys in. But
it's probably only Landry and Maclin. They're the only 2 I had in there.
Exactly. So for me, I have AB at 1. I have Keenan Allen at 2. I'm definitely going to talk about that. I have AJ Green at 3. I have Mike Evans at 4. I have Chris Hogan at 5. I'm going to definitely talk about that one too. Diggs at 6. Stephon Diggs at 6. I have Julio at 7. Michael Thomas at 8. Demaryius Thomas at 9. Hopkins at 10. Baldwin at 11. Dez at 12. Alshon Jeffrey at 13. Nelson Aguilar at 14. I have Tyreek Hill at 15. Michael Crabtree 16. Kelvin Benjamin 17. Brandon Cooks 18. Devin Funchess 19. Adam Thielen 20. I have Golden Tate 21. Mohamed Sanu 22. I have D-Jax at 23. I have Kearse at 24. I have Robbie Anderson at 25. I have Amari Cooper at 26. I have Josh Doxson at 27. I have Brandon LaFell at 28. I have Jordan Matthews at 29. I have Cole Beasley at 30. Ted Ginn Jr. at 31. I have Benny Fowler at 32. I have Will Fuller at 33. I have Marquise Goodwin at 34. I have Paul Richardson at 35. And Brandon Coleman at 36. First, I guess I'll get into Keenan Allen at 2. I think I have him higher than anybody I've looked at. Anybody's rankings that I've looked at all.
I mean, I have him at 5. I thought I was high on him. So,
Yeah, I have him at 2. I love him this week. I really think, you guys saw how I had Rivers at 2. So, for me, I think those two, they haven't had that game yet where you're
they have not.
Yes, they haven't had that game yet where you're like, wow, these guys are so good. And I just feel like, on Sunday they're going to really gel in this game. They're really going to, I could see a game where he catches 8 to 10 balls for 120 and 2 touchdowns. I just really like him this week. I feel like game script's going to be the highest scoring game of the week, and I can see Keenan Allen finally having that game that everybody's like, hell yeah, I got Keenan Allen in my squad.
Yeah, I would love that. I'm a big Keenan Allen fan. I would love to see it too. They have not had that game. When Keenan Allen's on, and when Phillip Rivers a couple years ago would just target this guy like 17 times in a game, he would be getting like 13 catches for 140 yards. It's like, he hasn't had that game yet, and I think it's coming. Definitely, I'm with you. I guess the guy I want to talk about is Demaryius Thomas. I think Demaryius is due for a big week this week. Kansas City, Steve talked about it last week. They've been giving up a lot of big plays, and if what we think could possibly happen winds up happening, which is they do give CJ the ball a little bit more, I think that could open it up for Demaryius to have some big plays down the field off of the play action, a lot like he was in the first few weeks. So I like Demaryius this week against a Kansas City defense that hasn't really been doing too well against, number one and big play receivers, as we saw last week with Amari Cooper.
I hear that. I definitely agree. Demaryius Thomas for me, I really, really like this week. Last week we kind of said the same thing. Demaryius Thomas is going to have a good game, blah, blah, blah. He had an 81-yard reception taken back.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the worst, offensive PI I've ever seen. I mean,
it was.
It was terrible. That was just a really bad call. He still, regardless to that catch, if he didn't, he didn't get that catch, but if he had gotten that catch, he still would have only had like 98 yards. But then you don't know. And if they get down that side of the field, maybe he scores and his game is completely different, and we're having a completely different conversation about Demaryius Thomas. But for me, he's the best player, the best receiver on that team, possibly the best player on that team, and they need to win this game. So to me, there's not really anybody that can guard Demaryius Thomas in this game. You know what I mean? So I think
I think Marcus Peters is kind of he's more of a big play corner. I don't think he's a shutdown corner. I just think he's a guy who can make big plays.
Exactly. He's a ball hawk. You know what I mean? He's a guy that really gets after the ball. But, we've seen it time and time again this year, him getting beat over and over again over the top.
Exactly.
Because he does. He gives up those plays. So, to me, Demaryius Thomas is going to get fed in this game, just like I think, C.J. Anderson's going to get fed in this game. They're going to take their two best players. They're going to use them. And, if you have Demaryius Thomas, start him with confidence.
I agree.
Yep, so the next guy I said I wanted to talk about, I have Chris Hogan at 5. I said it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. He is super disrespected amongst fantasy analysts. To me, I don't see how any of them don't have him in their top 12 every single week. I see a lot of analysts having him at around 15, as a good RB2. WR2. Yeah. So, but for me, any guy that can score you a touchdown every week,
Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, should be in your top 12. You know what I mean? He's not the sexy guy. He's not Julio. He's not, he's not Michael Thomas. He's not. But guess what? He has better numbers than those guys. You know what I mean? He's been better than those guys all season long. So for me, I don't care, what any fantasy analyst says. I'm going to look at what I see on TV, and what I see on TV is a guy who's being used by the best quarterback in the NFL constantly. He's constantly being targeted by probably the best quarterback ever, and I want that guy on my team, and I'm going to start him as an RB1 every week. Wide receiver 1 every week.
I'm right there with you. I really like to die. I really like Chris Hogan as well. I have him, I think, ranked at 14 this week. But it probably should have him at 10 ahead of Brandon Cooks, to be honest with you, because he's been playing better than Brandon Cooks all year. Yeah. I'm trying to look it up right now. Let me see.
He's actually 10 and Cooks is 8, I believe.
Overall?
Yeah, but Cooks has had those big games. He's had 131 and 2 touchdowns. He's had a couple of really big games. Well, actually, just the one really big game. But he had a 32-point game. Chris Hogan is actually wide receiver. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's what I was doing 7, right now. I was actually looking it up.
Yeah, Cooks is actually number
Cooks
7.
Is at number
and Hogan is number 9.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you guys remember, okay, so Hogan is number 9, right? He doesn't have that big game that Cooks has. But in week 1, Kansas City, we all saw what happened. That was the fluky Mike Gillislee 3 touchdown game. You know what I mean? And then if you look at the rest of the stats here, against the Jets, he got hurt. You guys saw him. He got that rib injury. So, they took him off the field for, almost a quarter and a half. Then they brought him back in the game. He could, he continued to fight through the injury, got maybe 2 more targets in the game, and then that was it. And then last week he was 4 for 71. So the guy is constantly, he's 5 for 78 and a touch, 4 for 68 and 2 touchdowns, 5 for 60 and a touchdown, 8 for 74 and touchdown, and then 4 for 71 last week. I just, the guy is consistent as hell.
The guy is money. He's money.
Yep. Other than those 2 games, he's fluky. A game where he got hurt, and then a fluky touchdown game. 3, running back touchdowns by a guy who doesn't even play basically anymore. So, to me, he's wide receiver 9 for a reason.
Yep. So, all right, the next guy I will talk about, I want to talk about Golden Tate. I don't know, Golden Tate is supposedly, Adam Schefter put out that all signs are pointing toward him playing. If it was me, I would much rather him kind of just take this week off if his shoulder's bothering him, give him one more week to get healthy, because I do have Golden Tate in one of my leagues. But, I think if he is on the field, he's going to be a little bit more of a, what's the word?
Decoy?
Decoy, yeah, a little bit more of a decoy. I think they're going to be using him just kind of to open things up for the running game and open things up for the other receivers. And if that happens, I don't. Golden Tate's usually a guy in the upper teens. Right now, I think, Steve, you had him at 23 or 20. Where did you have him stay? I have him at 25.
I had Golden Tate. Let me see. I had him at 21.
21. I have him at 24. And, that's really low for Golden Tate. Usually, like I said, he's in the upper teens. So, if you're starting Golden Tate, don't do it with too much confidence. If you have to play him, play him. But if you can go in other directions, I would.
Yeah, for me, he's like Kev said, he's in the teens for me almost every week. Pittsburgh, they're no joke. You know what I mean?
They're no joke on defense. No.
Yeah, they're a really good team.
They're getting back to the old Pittsburgh Steeler football,
exactly.
Which is like ground and pound and good defense.
Exactly. So, Golden Tate, regardless of whether he was injured or healthy in this game, I still think he would have a tough time. But now knowing that he's coming off of that shoulder injury, I feel like, you have to be a little bit cautious. You know what I mean? You're still starting him if you have him because, with so many teams on bye this week, you really don't probably have another better option. You know what I mean? So you're going to start him as a wide receiver too this week, but I'm not necessarily super happy about it.
Yep, man. Pittsburgh is quietly the number 1 seed in the AFC too, which is actually surprising. So
yeah,
with all the drama they got going on with Martavis Bryant, all that stuff going on, they're just playing. Big Ben throwing all them interceptions.
I got two names for you, bro. I got 2 names for you, bro. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio
Brown. Ain't hard to figure that out.
Enough to be said. You know what I mean? Those guys make the world of difference.
Yep.
So the next guy I want to talk about, and it kills me because I'm a diehard Bills fan, everybody. So I have to talk about Michael Crabtree. If there's any players over the years that really hurt the Buffalo Bills, it's receivers like Michael Crabtree. You know what I mean? Guys where they don't have the blazing speed, but they're sure-handed, and they give the Buffalo Bills fits. And I think Michael Crabtree, after coming off the game last week, he had 30 or 27 yards. I think it was 3 for 27 and a touch. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to completely erase Amari Cooper, which is why I had him down so low. I had him at 26 on a week where there were 6 teams on buys. So for me, I think Crabtree is going to be heavily used in this game, and he's the kind of receiver that kills us. So I wouldn't be surprised if Crabtree has a big game this week.
Yeah, I have Cooper at 16. I have Crabtree at 19. I think that the Oakland Raiders as a team are just going to turn it around. I think that they're getting ready to put the NFL on notice. That's like one team that I think is just on a breakout, ready to break out right now. After that game last week against the Chiefs. Yep. I don't really have anybody else to talk about. I will just bring up the 2 names later in my list that I'm watching and got an eye on. It is Juju Smith-Schuster and Josh Doxson. Juju is, Martavis Bryant is inactive. He's going to be inactive this week from what we hear because of all that shit that he's talking. So I want to see how Juju steps up. There's a little more pressure on him this week with this happening. And, this could be a week where, he kind of takes those reins away from Martavis and maybe even trade him after this week, knowing that Juju's able to step in and play and fit into that role. And the other guy's Josh Doxson. He took a lot of that X receiver role away from Terrell Pryor last week. So I'm kind of curious to see what he does and if he's going to stay into that role. And, I picked both of those guys up in different leagues. And both of those guys are guys that I have my eye on going, this week to see how they perform because it seems like there's going to be a little more spotlight on them.
I hear that. I agree. I didn't rank Juju, but I did write him down underneath Brandon Coleman. For me, I really like Juju. I like the way he plays. I think he's a physical receiver, and we talked about Anquan Bolden, and we talked about other guys that in the beginning of the season that we like their physical style of play. And I think Juju is a very physical. If you watch his game tape, he's not separating, by miles from anybody. But what he's doing is he's out muscling guys. He's using his big frame to catch balls, and I like guys like that. So I could see him doing something in this game if he gets the targets. That's the only worry for me, if he's going to get the targets or not.
100%. But here's the thing: they got Darius Slay over there, and Darius Slay is a really good cornerback, one of the most underrated cornerbacks in the NFL, I think, right now. And not too many people still are talking about Darius Slay when it comes to best cornerback conversations, but I'm not saying nobody shuts Antonio Brown down. Nobody will ever. But he could give him some fits, and that could open some things up for Juju as well for more targets.
I hear that.
So you have any more receivers you want to get into, Steve?
Yeah, just one more. Josh Doxson, me and Kev talked about on the on the Waiver Wire podcast this week. We actually talked about him last week too, but Josh Doxson in this game, I don't know why. I just have a feeling he's going to have a big game. He's going to have a big game this week. I have him in some of my FanDuel lineups. Some of my DraftKings lineups. He's super cheap on DraftKings. He's like $3,900, and then on FanDuel, I think he's like 40 or 5,100, something like that.
Mm-hmm. He's 55 on FanDuel.
Yeah. So,
I'm right there with you. I'm sorry. I think he's 52. I think
Okay.
Juju's I actually have Juju and Doxson in one of my FanDuel lineups, and Juju's 55. I think Doxson's 52.
Exactly. And, just looking, at how I think this game is going to go, it's a high over under. It looks like a game that's going to, shoot out, and I could see Doxson getting, a long touchdown because he does look for him deep and in the red zone. He's a big-bodied receiver, so, I like Josh Doxson this week, and if you guys, need a replacement for your bye weeks, I think he could really work out for you.
Right there with you.
Yes. All right, guys, so I'll go over my tight end ranks. Me and Kev, we say it every week. Gronk, number 1.
Yep.
so
it doesn't change, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change. Last week he didn't play. He didn't have a good fantasy week last week, but regardless, it does not change.
No. So I got Gronk number 1. I have Zach Ertz number 2. I have Travis Kelce number 3. Those guys are probably going to be 1, 2, and 3 for me every week. I have Hunter Henry number 4. I really like him this week. I have Jason Witten number 5. I have Jordan Reed number 6. I have Zach Rudolph number 7. I have Tyler Kroft number 8. ASJ number 9. I have Jimmy Graham number 10. I have Cameron Brate number 11, and Zach Miller number 12.
Ooh, one guy we're definitely going to get into. Number 1, Gronk. Number 2, Ertz. Number 3, Jordan Reed. Number 4, Travis Kelce. Number 5, Kyle Rudolph. Number 6, Jimmy Graham. Number 7, Cameron Brate. Number 8, Hunter Henry. Number 9, Austin Seferian-Jenkins. 10, Tyler Kroft. 11, Jason Witten. And number 12, Nick O'Leary.
Nick O'Leary.
Yeah, that's a call
Nick.
for me this week. That's a call for me this week. Yeah, but one guy I definitely want to get into is Kyle Rudolph. Everybody knows Cleveland Browns get killed by the tight end.
Yes.
I love Rudolph. Rudolph is in every FanDuel DraftKings daily lineup for me this week. I think that for the value that you're going to get on him, he's going to be the best tight end this week for based on value. He's in for a big week.
I hear that. I agree. I have Zach Rudolph Kyle Rudolph over at. Let me see. Where the hell do I have him?
I was going to say, I didn't think you have. Did you have him ranked?
Yeah, I did have him at 7. Yeah, I had him.
Okay.
Yeah, Rudolph at 7. Yeah. For me, I just. The only thing that scares me about him, I was actually going to put, because I have him at 7, I was actually going to put Kroft and ASJ over top of him, and then I had to scratch it off and put him above them. I think that the only thing that scares me is Diggs coming back. If you look at the games when Diggs was playing, he didn't really get targeted all that much. I think they kind of focused on the wide receivers, but then I thought about it a little bit more, and if Diggs is still a little bit hobbled, maybe they, say, okay, we're not going to throw the ball to him as much. Maybe he's a little bit more of a decoy, and then that opens it up for, Rudolph and Thaleen. So, I'm going back and forth on it, but I do like Rudolph, in this matchup. They, like Kev said, they get killed by the tight end, and, you got to have him in your lineup if you have him.
Yep.
So the only tight end, honestly, that I really want to talk about is I have him a little bit high is Jason Witten. I have it 5. For me, it's the same thing with the Washington Redskins. They are terrible at stopping, tight ends. They have
Zach
trouble.
Ertz just goes off every time we play the Redskins. Zach Ertz just goes off.
Exactly. See, and if you look at their matchups, they did play Travis Kelce. They did play Zach Ertz. They did play, a couple of guys, that are really good tight ends this year. So maybe that skews the numbers a little bit. But to me, watching the game tape, their linebackers can't cover them. You know what I mean? And
I actually like Zach Brown.
Yeah.
But he's more
not
of
a
a
coverage
run stopper.
Yes.
He's more of a run stopper than he is
and
a
blitzer. He's a great blitzer. So you know
that better than any of us.
Yeah, he's a really good blitzer. So for me, it is what it is. Trust me, Jason Witten is going to kill the Redskins this weekend. So if you have him, don't even worry about him. Just play him.
Yep. I got three more guys I actually really quick want to get into. Jimmy Graham is another one. I have a number 6, but I'm actually watching him. I feel like he got a lot of targets last week, especially in the red zone. He dropped one of the touchdown passes. But me and Steve, we're watching games together, and when that game, I felt like he was getting a lot of targets. So, with that being said, that's something that you always want is a guy who's going to be targeted a lot, especially in the red zone. And Jimmy Graham literally could have had a huge fantasy day. He just had 2 drops that were, horrible. He dropped a ball down the sideline wide open. That was probably a 30 or 40-yard pass, and then he dropped one in the end zone. But he's pretty short-handed, so I don't think that's going to be something that continues. So I like Jimmy Graham going forward. That might be a guy that you want to buy, honestly, as a tight end if you can, because I think his production is going to rise.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I completely agree. I don't really have much to add to that one.
Yeah. Another guy I want to talk about is Tyler Kroft. I talked about this with Andy Dalton. I love his matchup with Indy this week. Indy can stop the run, but he can't stop the pass. And, there's not a lot of targets on that offense other than A.J. Green. Tyler Kroft has seemed like he's starting to become one. So I like Tyler Kroft as a guy you can play this week. Mm-hmm. And another guy I want to talk about is Nick O'Leary. Oakland's another team that does not do well stopping the tight end. And there's not same thing, not a lot of options for Tyrod Taylor. They basically throw the ball to McCoy out of the backfield and nobody else. There's not really a lot of options. And we were watching the game last week and watching Red Zone last week when that game popped up, and it was like Nick O'Leary, and I was like, that's the guy I always talk about with Jameis Winston's tight end at Florida State. I always bring up Jameis Winston loved this tight end at Florida State, and that's who it is. And I really liked this guy when I saw him play with Florida State. Him and Jameis had a good connection, and Tyrod leans on the tight end. Charles Clay was having a monster year before he got hurt. I think Nick O'Leary can step into that role, and he might see a touchdown this week.
I hear that. I'm a Bills fan.
Yeah.
So I love Nick O'Leary. For me, against the Raiders, it's just, to me, it's going to be one of those games where I think the Bills are going to be able to do whatever the hell they want against the Raiders. This game, I know a lot of Bills fans, I'm part of the Bills Mafia, so I know a lot of Bills fans are a little bit worried about this game. To me, I'm not worried at all about this game. And I know the Raiders looked really good last week against a bad Kansas City defense, but I'm telling you right now, if Derek Carr comes into Buffalo throwing up the ducks that he was throwing up last week, those 40-yard in the air passes, to our secondary, I'm sorry, he's going to get picked off 3 or 4 times tomorrow. So, he better come correct. Well, way more correct than he came against the Chiefs, because guess what? Our defense is not the Chiefs' defense. So for me, I could see a game where the Bills really just throttle the Raiders if they come the wrong way. So and I do feel like Nick O'Leary is going to have at least a touchdown in this game. I really feel like he's going to have a touchdown in this game. So start him if you got him.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's no better option for you, Nick O'Leary is a really nice play, I feel like, this week.
I agree.
All right, we'll get into defenses real quick. Not really a lot of explanation on defenses. But number 1, I have the Vikings. Number 2, the Eagles. Number 3, the Chiefs. Number 4, Seattle. Number 5, Cincinnati. Number 6, Pittsburgh. Number 7, Atlanta. Number 8, New England. Number 9, Carolina. Number 10, Denver. Number 11, New Orleans. And number 12, Washington.
All right. So I have the Vikings also at number 1. I have the Steelers at number 2.
Saquon did it again.
He just ran it back again?
He didn't run another one, but he just took it off about 30 or 40 yards. They're up 21-3 on Ohio State right now.
Jesus. All right, so I have the Vikes number 1 also. I have the Steelers number 2. I have the Bengals number 3. I have the Eagles number 4. I have the Saints 5, Bills 6, Hawks 7. Seahawks, that is, just in case anybody's wondering. I have the Chiefs 8, the Broncos 9, the Bears 10, the Texans 11, and the Jets 12. All right, so the only one I want to talk about is the Jets. I told you guys during the week that I could see, the Jets come into play in this game against the Super Bowl champ, the Super Bowl runner-up last year. Mm-hmm. And as terrible as Matt Ryan has looked this season, I could see him throwing a pick or two. And we went over the stats for the Jets. They have 9 turnovers this year. So if they try to come in this game and they don't do what I was saying earlier about running the ball and involving both of those running backs in this game, I can see it going south real quick for the Atlanta Falcons and them losing their games. The Falcons have already lost to the Bills. They've already lost to the Dolphins, and they've already lost to the Patriots. So the Jets are the only AFC East team not to beat them yet. So I can see them losing completely. Getting swept by the AFC East. So I like the Jets this week.
I guess the only one I'll really get into is Cincinnati, I guess. I like Cincinnati against Indianapolis this week. Indianapolis is not a very good offense. I think that they just kind of last week it looked like they last week, they announced that Andrew Luck was going to probably be, it was a setback, and it almost seems like now he's going to wind up getting shut down for the year. And it just seemed like it took the heart out of that team last week. Jacksonville just put the paws on them on D. So Cincinnati going to come in, and I don't really see much difference. This could be a thing where, Indianapolis winds up dropping and dropping and dropping. And just winds up getting into that hunt for those top picks to try and pair with Andrew Luck, because they're just not very good. And without Andrew Luck, that team is just showing to be what it is.
I agree. There's not really much to be said on this one. I think everybody's favorite defense this week is either the Bengals, the Vikings, or the Eagles. So
I like the Vikings. Yeah, I love the Vikings this week. I think the Vikings go to work.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where, they don't have enough firepower to, really compete. Is basically what it is, and they're going to get throttled again. So, if you got the Bengals defense, be happy and start them.
Yep.
So, all right, guys, that is the podcast for today. Good luck with your fantasy teams this weekend. We will be back actually tomorrow, Kev. I don't know if you want to do a Sunday, real quick Sunday podcast for DFS.
I'm down for it.
All right, cool. So we're going to come out with a DFS podcast tomorrow, give you guys a lineup on DK and FanDuel, and hopefully you guys win some cash.
There you go.
All right, y'all. So that's it for us. Peace out.
Take it easy, everybody. Enjoy your week.